this is sort of a family tree of Islam, so to speak. So we have the Sunnis on one side and the Shia on the other. And within each box, the little Roman numeral, that simply denotes what century this particular group first emerged in. But for example, in Sunni Islam, Sunni Islam isn't broken up into denominations the way Shia Islam is. With Shia, obviously, we have a proliferation. It's like Protestant Christianity. It's just constant new sects or groups breaking off and forming all the time. Within Sunni Islam, there's much more doctrinal unity, Catholicity, even among the Sunnis. But what they do have are a variety of legal schools. This group over here to the left, right? There are the Maliki, the Hanifi, the Shafi'i, and the Hanbali. And these are the groups, the different legal scholars who are debating the notion of jihad. If the debate went something like this, if it is necessary to return to this model of jihad, the question is, whose responsibility is it? Who should go on jihad? And when, and why, and how? We need to get specific about this. And here's where there is an ethnic element in it. That among the ethnically Arab groups, the peoples over to the east of the Crusader states, over in what's today Jordan and Syria, right? And among the ethnically Arab Sunni groups down in Egypt, they tended to emphasize jihad as a personal responsibility. It is something that every individual is called to do. The kind of jihad that is preached up in this territory emphasizes that jihad, it's instead, and this is the Hanafi school, that jihad is the responsibility not of the masses, not of every Muslim. It is the responsibility of the leader of society. There is only one mujahideen, one person undertaking jihad, and that is the ruler. Everyone else is fighting not on jihad, you're fighting for the ruler, who is the one and only mujahideen. And that school of jihad is predominated by the Turks. And what you have is Zengi and his son, Nur ad-Din, are both ethnic Turks. So we see that in leading up, or in the building up of a resistance or of a reactive force against the Crusader states, right? That this was regarded as a uniquely Turkish calling, and one that is uniquely obliged of or required of the Turkish leader, who is at first the Zengi. Before he ever began his counter-crusade, Zengi, who he built many mosques and schools and things like that, and in the inscriptions that he put up, right, he refers to himself as a mujahideen. He talks about himself as the martyr to be for Islam. That he's placing himself as the defender of all of Islam. That's not the way he's regarded, though, by the non-Turkish Muslims. When the Zengi, he begins his career, he's the Atabeg, he's like a county commissioner or a provincial governor up in the city of Mosul. When he begins his campaign and starts building up his reputation and starts gathering forces and preaching that he's going to wipe out the Crusader states, he's going to do this, he's going to do that, the reaction of the ethnically Arab rulers of this territory was surprising. Rather than saying, oh yes, let's all unite behind this guy and get rid of the Christians, the emir of Damascus, for example, the very first thing he did is he formed a military alliance with the Crusader states against Zengi. What they wanted to do was to, with a two-pronged action, they wanted to keep him in his cage up there in Mosul. That the Arab states of the region, who are already hurting, who are already feeling slighted in the Islamic world in general, the last thing they want is a resurgence of Turkish power. And we have under Zengi and then under Nur ad-Din, what we have is they ultimately do move down, however. Neither one of them, at least, or how should I put it, there is no explicit evidence that shows that either one of them was ever interested in Jerusalem. They never talk about it. They don't talk about leading a war against the Christians. They don't talk about taking over the Holy Land. When they talk about a specific target, they talk about Damascus. That's what they want. Damascus, I haven't been there, but I believe that it's a city that has many charms all of its own, so I can see why they might want it. But they also want it because Damascus was the capital of Islam when Islam was still under Arab control. Now it has been transferred over to Baghdad. In taking over Damascus, the Turks, it provides a symbolic value of this new group, we have completely taken over the ethnically Arab world. So that's what they want. It's very likely, it's probable, that they also intended to go for the Holy Land. But there's no clear evidence of it at all. They never mention it. The only person who does mention the desire to take the Holy Land is the next guy, Saladin, who takes over after Nur ad-Din. Saladin, to add to the ethnic confusion, Saladin is a Kurd. He's an Armenian Kurd. And by the time he comes to power, what he had done is that even though he's a different ethnic group, he was one of the generals, a military commander under Nur ad-Din. And after Nur ad-Din's death, Saladin married Nur ad-Din's widow. And so he did that. I doubt that he was in love. I think you want to marry the widow of the previous leader. And so he became the de facto leader of the Turks as well. And it's under Saladin, now that Damascus has already been united under Turkish control, it's Saladin who also leads the campaign to bring Egypt under Turkish control, which he does. And it's only after completing this sweep that he then decides to go for the Holy Land itself. Now again, he probably thought about it. It was probably part of his plan from the very beginning. But there's no specific evidence of it. Until after he's been in control, he is now the leader. The Turks recognize him as their leader, and now he's the de facto commander of all the Arabs in the region as well. Now he is the one that he begins to emphasize the significance of Jerusalem. We have to take Jerusalem. Why? Because, well, in a way, it's similar to why King David chose Jerusalem to be the Hebrew capital. Prior to David choosing Jerusalem, Jerusalem wasn't a place of any particular religious significance to the Hebrews. That's the reason why he chose it. Because none of the 12 tribes had a unique claim upon it, and therefore it was relatively neutral territory, and it could provide a kind of summoning or rallying point for all the different tribes. Just as in the United States, after they wrote the Constitution, they chose Washington, D.C., a place that wasn't part of any state in order to be the capital. Because otherwise, out of fear that one state would get bragging rights over the rest or something like that. That appears to be why Saladin chose it. Of course, there is a religious link with Islam. The Dome of the Rock has been there for a long time. In a symbolic sense, naturally, as Islam presents itself as the successor to Judaism and Christianity, so too, inevitably, it's going to be the successor to control of Jerusalem. But the first explicit evidence of Jerusalem being a place of central religious importance to Muslims only emerges during the time of Saladin. The Dome of the Rock has always been a holy mosque, but the city itself, not so. During the Umayyad period, there were many famous palaces and luxury palace gardens and things that they built in the region, but they were all built outside the city. The city itself was not a site of major pilgrimage for Muslims prior to Saladin. So again, it mattered a lot. It was dear to the hearts of those Muslims who lived there already. But there's very little evidence of any large-scale, say, pilgrimage to Jerusalem by Muslims from anywhere else in the Islamic world. So it's not that it's a city that meant nothing, but it didn't mean everything until the time of Saladin.